And they let they let me call them by their first name. I think it's pretty nice. A lot of times that doesn't happen. Especially with that. I don't think I have that much work. Are you like trying to figure things out? What are we going to do? When should I start?
No, okay.
No, you are. I hate it when you all do that to me. All right, William.
Are we? Okay. 203 years ago, on this very day, October 21st, the great Battle of Trafalgar was fought between the naval fleets of England and that of France. And at this battle, the English fleets found themselves outmanned and outgunned, 27 British ships to the 33 French ships. But despite these odds, the British were able to achieve an incredible victory. How was this victory achieved? It was strategy and strategy alone. So today I want to look at the strategy that was employed by the British. I want to dissect it and look at the steps that were employed to give them this victory. I believe that this step can be divided into two parts. No one else describes these steps better than Julius Caesar, who lived 2,000 years before this battle when he said, "Divide and conquer." That is exactly what the British did. So, let's begin looking at this strategy. The players in this battle, this naval battle, is Lord Horatio Viscount Nelson. He is the English commander of the British fleet. He's a very capable and distinguished officer. And then we have Admiral Villeneuve, commander of the French fleet. And at this time, England and France have been at war since roughly 1793. Napoleon Bonaparte is in charge of Europe, and King George III is in control of England. But France and Spain are an alliance. We have French ships and Spanish ships sailing together. So this is why we are going to call this fleet under Villeneuve's command the Franco-Spanish fleet. So, with the men playing in this battle understood, we now move to October 20th, the eve of battle. Lord Nelson is finalizing his tactic with his officers. Tradition was for your fleet to line up parallel to each other, and then sail along at a parallel angle in one continuous line and exchange broadsides with each other. Broadsides is the discharging of all the cannons on one particular side of your ship. This was an ineffective battle, because the side of the ship is the most protected part. It is made out of the thickest wood, so cannonballs did very little damage, and battles resulted in draws. Lord Nelson wanted victory. So he divided his fleet into two columns, and he decided to approach his fleet at a 90-degree, you can't even see that, 90-degree angle. Can you see that?
It's just the glare.
Okay. The 90-degree angle creating a T. As you can see here, this is original sketch done by Lord Nelson explaining this to his officers. We have the dotted line representing the Franco-Spanish fleet, and then the dotted line of the two columns of the British fleet coming in. And Roy Atkins explains in his book, Nelson's Trafalgar, that from the air this appeared as a T. Franco-Spanish and then the incoming British fleet. Lord Nelson explains in a letter to his mistress, Lady Hamilton, "When I came to explain to them the Nelson touch, it was like an electric shock. Some shed tears, all approved. It was new, it was singular, it was simple." So with this simple plan understood, the battle began on October 21st. This little animation will help illustrate the proceedings of the battle. Here we have the Franco-Spanish fleet and then the oncoming British fleet in the two columns. At roughly 1 p.m., the British fleet made contact with the French fleet, effectively cutting it in two. The front half of the Franco-Spanish fleet continued to sail away because the wind was with them and they could not turn around and offer aid to the back half that is now cut off and surrounded by the two columns. Lord Nelson did this to level the playing field. He now had more men and more guns and raised the chances of a victory. And with the fleet effectively cut in two, Lord Nelson then can proceed to the butchery of his plan. When a British ship got at exactly 90 degrees with a French ship, they opened up and threw a broadside into the bow of a French ship. The bow is the weakest point in any ship. The wood is the thinnest. So the cannonballs quickly broke through and flew from one end of the ship to another, ripping it apart. As this picture shows you, there is very little on the interior of a ship that prevents a cannon from flying from one end to another, so human life was quickly ended, really, on the interior of the ship. I mean, essentially. So on the sides of the ships, you can see the thickness and how the cannons really would not do very much, would not do a whole lot of damage. So the interior of the ships were quickly ripped to pieces. And then after the broadside was put into the bow, the British ship then steered itself, making it parallel with the French ship, and opened up, offering another broadside into the French ship. Simultaneously, the second British ship in the line of battle has sailed and is now in a position to fire yet another broadside into the bow. So now the French ships are engaged at 2 points. Lord Nelson did this on purpose because he wanted to take advantage of the gunnery skills of his sailors. As J. Tolson explains in his article, The Battle That Changed the World, a British gunnery crew could fire and reload in roughly 90 seconds, whereas the French and Spanish sailors could only fire and reload in 5 minutes. So the cannon fire was unprecedented on these French ships. They were quickly cut down to size, and their ability to respond was non-existent. The British immediately gained the upper hand by surrounding these French ships and pouring incredible cannon fire into them. At roughly 4:30, the British were able to declare a decisive and absolute victory. 18 ships of the Franco-Spanish were captured of the 33. 1,400 French and Spanish sailors were killed at this battle. That does not include the wounded and lost. The British only lost 500. This was the highest casualty in any naval battle that has been fought up to this point. But sadly, Lord Horatio Nelson was killed. He was shot after the battle had been going for roughly an hour. A sniper shot him from a French ship. The bullet went through his back into his spine. He died at the end of the battle after he'd received word. He just said, "Thank God I've been able to do my duty." But this victory allowed Britain to forever control the sea, to invade England. But Lord Nelson lives on. Just being in the term, the Nelson touch. And because of this victory, naval strategy has forever been changed. It was no longer a tradition, but battles were now strategically designed before they are ever engaged. It was a quick drive to the center, quickly engaging each French, rendering them unable to respond. Quick fire. And because of this, the British were able to win this battle decisively. And if it were not for this strategy, I would probably be a completely different outcome today. Thank you.